Casual Magic has been sponsored by Quiver, maker of the Quiver and Bolt deck cases and other fine deck holding accessories. Use the code CASUAL on their website for 10% off your order. You can also support Casual Magic directly by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/ShivamB. And now, on with the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam, Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Quiver and my patrons at patreon.com/ShivamB. And today I am very, very excited to be joined by the director and producer of a brand new documentary about Magic the Gathering called The Gathering is Magic, which I got to participate in. They interviewed me for because apparently at the time I was important and that was kind of neat. David Wilson, thank you so much for joining me today. This is really cool.
Thanks for having me.
I'm super hyped because I had forgotten, I think it was 2 Vegases ago before they were even Magic Cons, right? Or was it at a Magic Con itself?
It was Magic Con Vegas in September of 23, I believe.
Yeah. So it was the first one after M30 and it was the first Vegas I had gone to, I think. And yeah, you had grabbed a bunch of us to bring down to your setup and did all this cool lighting and stuff and interviewed us and put it together into this really interesting documentary that you just recently Kickstarted. Or is the Kickstarter still going as we're recording? I think it's done, right?
So the Kickstarter has officially concluded. It was successful, but all of the physical rewards will remain available for purchase until we finish the movie. Basically.
Right. But yeah, so essentially it's, I'm a big fan of Magic and documentaries and people doing these sorts of document, because I feel like Magic, one of the things as a 30-year-old property that we've done very poorly is actually document and talk to our legacy people and get this stuff on the record and recorded for historical value. And I thought it was a really cool project, so I was very happy to jump in and just talk about why Magic was cool. But so tell me, what's its pitch here? What is this documentary about?
So, the documentary is not so much about the game.
Yeah.
It's not something you're going to watch and it's going to make you a better player or even teach you how to play the game. We go over what it is in a very quick way. But it's really about the community of people that surround the game. So, the people who go to LGSs every Friday and Saturday, and people who go to conventions, people who stream and create content, and the people who put on those events, and, just how this game brings people together in a way that, I just haven't experienced through any other hobby.
Yeah, I'm smiling because that is literally the modus operandi of this podcast, right? It is not about playing Magic or about the cards or about anything like that. It's about who are we that this game has brought together? What is this game's impact been on us as people, our communities, our players? How have we made connections with each other? And so when I was watching the trailer for your thing, I was like, okay, this guy gets it. You understood where the actual heart of the game is, which isn't just the cards. For decades, Wizards of the Coast was it's all about pro play, it's all about competitive play, it's all about winning and playing and doing things. I'm like, no, dude, it's about the fact that there are people who go town to town every weekend to hang out with their buddies in Omaha and then Newark and then Kyoto. And they're playing the game. The game is just the thing that brought us together. It's not the thing that keeps us here. And and
it's a bridge too. I don't get to go to my LGS, maybe once a quarter or twice a quarter, but so I don't know everybody there when I walk into the room, but when I sit down at a table, it's we have something to talk about. We have something to do together and we have this experience, that I think that's why golf is popular. I hate golf, but like I think that's one of those, things that like middle-aged men can do together.
Yeah,
We're allowed to do. And I'm like, I'm not doing that, guys. I'm going to go play with some dragons. I'll see you later.
Like exactly. I think like one of the strengths of Magic is that it gives us a place that's not alcohol based to hang out with people, or it's not like based on playing golf or going to a baseball game or whatever. It's anybody within reason. Obviously, the game is inaccessible and expensive and hard to deal with, but it's a neutral way for us to get a place to hang out with people and chill and connect and make community. But so before we get farther though, I should ask your background. Like, who are you and why did you decide to do this?
So, my name is David Wilson. I'm some dude from Nashville, Tennessee. I've been a filmmaker for about 20 years. And I've been a Magic player since 1994, fall of 94. So
class of 94.
The Dark was on sale. Revise was on sale when I started playing. Fallen Empires was the first set that came out once I started playing.
So you started like exactly the same time I did.
Nice.
Yeah. Fall of 94 when I was in.
Like I was a big nerd. Like I have a hard time feeling comfortable in social settings, especially when I don't know anybody, and tend to be like a bit of a wallflower. So, I had just made the transition from being in middle school, which was totally miserable for me. I didn't have all my friends left after 6th grade, and I was all by myself, I felt like, for 2 years. And then I moved to high school with a lot of them. But like, I didn't want to go watch sports and, do the popular things. I was like, can we play Dungeons and Dragons? Anybody want to play with me? I had like a little, like 3-man team that we would play, and,
Do me a favor and push your chair a little back.
A little back?
Yeah.
How about that?
Great.
Okay.
Because when you get excited, it gets a little flatlining.
I do. I tend to get excited.
We all do, and it's Magic.
But especially when I'm talking about Magic and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff.
Right?
So,
like, okay,
you can't see this, but my desk is literally like covered with my Dungeons and Dragons dice and dex boxes. And
yeah, like so what you're saying is you're exactly like every other guest I have on this show.
Like if you were like, let's play D&D, I'm like, I'm ready to go. I have all my stuff right here.
Seriously. I have like 1/12 of my collection behind me of stuff, and I haven't like I've got this cool poster of Minsc and Boo from that they released with the Forgotten Realms Forgotten Realms Magic set. So nice. That it's like holographic. So if you look this side, it's got the big D&D logo, and this side it's a
Is
Magic
it the
logo.
Phil Stone one? Oh, nice. Okay, that one.
Yeah, that one's for your audio listeners out there. I just grabbed my poster and showed it to him, and it was really cool. Sorry, I just built this brand new studio that I'm in, so it's not quite done yet. And I just got tangled in all my cables, and that would be really awkward if I yanked them out. As audio listeners at home know when the show stops abruptly. But yeah, so that like D&D and Magic are both those kind of games where it's like, this is one of the best ways ever created for people to, people who have social problems and are otherwise find it challenging to actually connect with other people, to be able to connect with people and have a baseline like way to communicate that's like puts us on equivalent footing, and then gives you an in, and then to let you just become a normal person. And I mean, not a normal person, but like it lets you shed your awkwardness. Like that's what it did for me, at least. Like when I was a kid, I was a hardcore. I was going to ask you before I got all tangled up. What was your setting? What was your D&D world of choice as a child?
My favorite was Dark Sun.
Oh, Dark Sun's rad.
I mean, it was like Mad Max meets, meets, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Kind of like I was describing to people as like, imagine Lord of the Rings if Sauron wins.
Yeah,
and
right.
It's like 1,000 years later and nobody knows what happened. And they're all trying to figure it out. They're like, why does our world suck so much?
Right?
Like
the magic in Dark Side is so cool. You're like, if I use power, the land around me like evaporates turns to dust because I'm just drawing all this like energy away from it and just sucking it dry. It's so sick. I mean, I was a Dragonlance kid, so like.
I actually just finished re-listening to Dragons of Winter Night.
I just finished reading that to my son at bedtime
a few days ago.
Yeah, we got to the part where Sturm dies and he started crying, and I'm like, it still works. Yeah, my other podcast is called Chronicles of Dragonlance, where my friends and I go through chapter by chapter through the thing. But anyways, but yeah, so why would you like? Because there's a famous quote from senior designer Gavin Verhey, which is like, I can go anywhere around the world, and as long as I have a deck in my pocket, I can sit down with people who I don't even share a language with, a culture with, or any sort of other means of communication. And we can play a game because we all understand what these cards do. And that can be our bridge into becoming friends and communicating with each other and building a relationship. And I've always found that really poignant and also just true. Like when I went to MagicCon Amsterdam for the first time, it was my first time in Europe as a content creator or whatever. And I met a dude right off the bat who was like, I'm from Lithuania. I never thought I would see you here. I listened to your shows and I've seen you on like YouTube and stuff. I'm like, Lithuania? Like, that's like the farthest possible place I could think of in terms of like magic. And I'm like, before I said anything stupid, I remembered, I'm like, oh yeah, they have the internet in Lithuania. It's okay. But also just like, that is kind of an unfathomable idea that like, I do this thing with cards and people from literally every corner of the planet know who I am. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, when I first started making this documentary, I actually was thinking more about my interests in the game. Like I love stories just as a filmmaker, as a writer. Sure. Like I love any kind of story. And I've always been fascinated with the way that magic tells a story, because there's this conceit that you're a wizard and the other guy across from you or girl from you, is also a wizard. And, you kind of express what kind of wizard you are by the cards you play. Mm-hmm. And, if you're like a necromancer, you're summoning, skeletons and demons and all kinds of stuff. And you're, doing all kinds of nasty stuff to your opponent. And, they may be like an elf magic person and they're summoning elves and things. And
I'm right here, man.
I'm like thinking about that when I play, and the first time we went to a convention and I started asking people about this and they're like, story. I don't really keep up with the lore. I'm like, no. Like in the game, like when you're playing, like when you lightning bolt somebody, like, aren't you thinking about like you're the wizard blowing the sky up with a bolt of lightning? And they're like,
yes, I am. Like, do you remember that?
Really.
Do you remember the revised deck box? The revised deck box. So originally, your deck was supposed to be your book of spells.
Right? I literally have one over there, I think.
And if you look at the revised deck box, on the top flap, there's a little red like shape there, which is meant to represent the bookmark in your deck.
It was supposed to look like a spell book.
And I was like, guys, look at the back of the card. You can see it's literally just an arcane like book novel. And every time I show it to like new kids, they're like, what? And I'm like, guys, you're killing me. We're wizards. We draw the power from the land and we cast spells at each other. I mean, that was like the whole genesis of why I play this game, right? Like I was like, oh, you mean I get to be like D&D? And when I throw a fireball, I've got a fireball in my hand. And when I'm hitting your dragon is right there and we can actually see it. And it's amazing.
Yeah. So that, it was like that and like the art and how that contributes to telling the story and all that. And, we went to a convention and like everyone looked at me like I was crazy. And they were sort of like, what do you, no, we just play the cards and then we win or we lose, and I play combos and stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe that maybe other people aren't as interested in that as I am. I'm glad you are. I had kind of shifted gears by then. And, there was this interesting phenomenon that happened at our first, when we were in Fort Worth at a SCG con. And we kind of rolled up and everyone was really skeptical of like what we were doing there. And, I was kind of like just asking some random people like, hey, do you want to talk to us? And they're like, no. And then just walk off. And, I turned to my DP, Rebecca Flores, and she was sort of like, what are we going to do? Like, nobody wants to talk to us. And I was like, I think I just have to prove to them I'm not trying to set them up to make them look bad. Here, you guys just film some B-roll. Watch me. I'm gonna go sign up for an event. And I signed up for it was a Brothers War sealed event. And I went, I got my packs, I cracked them, I was building the deck, I was just talking to the guys. They were sitting at my table and they were into it. They were listening. And by the time I finished, my first matchup, I could kind of see we were getting this like attention from the tables around us. And, I won a couple matches, and then, I lost my last one, but like we kind of, everyone at that point was like, oh, this dude like actually knows how to play Magic. He's not, an outsider. And throughout the rest of the day, it just like reinforced this whole like feeling of like, and like Cedric Phillips later on in the day, we interviewed him. He articulated it so well, where he was just like, you like Magic? I like Magic. Let's play Magic. Like that's what it's about. And,
right.
and that was like this warm blanket that I remembered from when I first walked into an LGS when I was 14 years old, and I was this short little skinny guy, and like everywhere I went, I was like, I hope they don't beat me up, and then I came in and people were just like, come sit down with us, play this game with us. And it didn't matter, who I was or how little I was, or, how, weird I was socially, and that room of people over the next couple of years all became my friends. And it wasn't just like other kids. Like I had relationships with like, adults that became my friends, and like we would talk about stuff, and they had experiences that I, like they had been in like the army and like done stuff I didn't even think about doing. And another guy was like a record executive. I mean, of course we're in Nashville.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa, this like cool dude who like during the day is like, during the week is like working with these big, celebrities making records. And then he comes in on Saturdays and just wails on us with,
it's
was awesome.
Wild. Like I've seen people who are like, I'm like, oh yeah, so what's your day job? It's like, oh, I work for the Olympics, or oh, I'm the senior vice president of a very large financial institution that you owe money to, or whatever. And I'm like, what the hell? Who are these people playing Magic? It turns out we all grew up in the same time. We do the same thing. This is and all these like at MagicCon Vegas this time around, I was sitting in the creator area and I see this very large man walk by, and like very large. And he's sitting there and he sits down and takes his deck and he sits down with a table of random people in the creator area. And he's just like, check out this new brand new Dragon painting I just got, like this AP that I got from Tyler. It's super cool and it's fancy and blingy. And I was like, oh, who's that guy? And a friend of mine's like, oh yeah, that's Leonard Williams. He won the Super Bowl last month or whatever. And I'm like, oh. And he's just as happy to show off his bling as the rest of us are, right? Like it just, it turns out when we've got cards, we're all just the same happy scrubs, super excited to show off all the cool things we've picked up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. I mean, I think all of us are who do this, and that's what the movie's about, and there are, I felt like you really needed to get like into somebody's life a little bit to kind of understand it. So there were 4 people that I had met in just kind of showing up at conventions and interviewing them. And I'm like, oh, these people are really interesting. Can I follow up with you? Can I like come visit you where you live and see what your life is like? And so, John Carter, who just goes by Carter, who is a event planner and judge.
I've known him for maybe a decade or more, just at the various different events and stuff, and I never knew his name was John.
I think it probably has something to do with the book. He doesn't want to be associated.
Sure.
And I'm sort of like, dude, maybe you shouldn't always wear a red shirt if you don't want to be the guy from Mars. But
like if you guys have ever been to literally any Magic event from like SCG or MTG or Channel Fireball or whatever, and you go to the head judge's table and there's like a bald dude with glasses, that's Carter. You have guaranteed seen him running an event at whatever it is you're doing if you've ever been to an event.
Yeah.
In the States, at least, I know.
And we met him on the first day and he was just full of awesome stories, and just you could tell immediately how deeply this man cares for the people who play the game. And that really touched me, and I think he has a really cool story of just how much he cares about other people and the lengths he is willing to go to help them. And then we went to Gen Con and met this young man who had wanted to be a Magic artist his entire life, since he was a little boy, and was still trying to get there, and felt like his art style just wasn't right for Magic. And then a couple of years later he got his first card, and Andrew Thompson, you may know him as Schmandrew Art, is now doing Magic cards all over the place.
Andrew, of course, did the cover art for my other show, Shivam and Wheeler Love Magic, and my playmat, and is just one of the nicest dudes I've ever. He's been on the show 3 or 4 times. No, maybe 3 times, I think, at this point. And yeah, I had him before he had done his first card. I got him after he did his first card, and it was just like, holy crap, dude, you got to do a card. You made. How many people can sit there and everybody is like, oh man, I wish I could draw a card for Magic, and then come back and say yo, I did it. It's incredible.
Yeah. And I actually went back and interviewed him last Wednesday. So
perfect.
6 days ago.
So we can
I drove up to Columbus and just spent the afternoon with him. And he told me this great story about his first Magic Con. He was there and somebody was at the artist next to him, and then was like, hey, I think I know you. And he was like, you do? How? Okay, what's up? And he's like, here, I got something for you. And he pulls out a binder, and it had, Andrew had drawn the Magic logo and all the symbols on this binder this guy still uses. And he's like, you did this, man. You were always saying you wanted to be a Magic artist, and here you are. This is amazing. I can't believe it.
Schmandrew told me that story when I hung out with him in Vegas, and he had tears in his eyes as he was telling this. He's like, it's wild to sit there, set out a dream, and actually have it come true, and wilder still for somebody to bring you the thing you started with and say, look, man, this is you committing to this, and look at where you are now. And it was damn, dog, that is incredible. So cool. He's such a good guy.
He had another really great story about going to Gen Con when he was a little boy, and he wanted this playmat with a dragon that Vinod Rams had drawn, and he ended up just getting a blank one and was like, hey, is it okay if I draw your dragon on this playmat? And Vinod was like, yeah, whatever, sure. And then he spent 3 hours on it and came back, was like, look. And then when he was a newly minted professional, ran into him again in Gen Con and was like, do you remember me? And he's like, oh my God, yes, I do. I can't believe this. And he's like, I got inspired to be an artist that day.
That's so sick.
And yeah, we reached out to Vinod and he did not. He was like, yeah, I didn't really do magic cards. I was like, no. But that's not why I want to interview you. I want to talk about Andrew Thompson. And he's like, yeah, I just don't think it would be a very good experience for you. I was like, no, just listen to me, man.
I remember I met him at Vinod Ram's at Gen Con in like 2000, 2002 or something like that. And I got some sketches from him back then when he was still just kind of like hustling, and it was cool. I found the other day a bunch of sketchbooks that I got from from Gen Cons like 2001, 2, 3, 4, where I was like, I would go around to all these famous artists and be like, hey, can you draw Raceland from Dragonlance for me? And they're like, I got nothing better to do here. Boom. And now I'm looking through, I'm like, there's a bunch of guys who've become like famous magic artists since then, or like Wayne Reynolds or Todd Lockwood, Larry Elmore. I'm like, oh, these are, whoa. I should probably put these somewhere better than just in this folder that it's got in like the bottom of my closet. It's kind of sick.
Just a technical break here.
Yeah.
I'm seeing your sound waves very clearly, and mine looks like it's flatlining. Are you sure we're recording? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, don't worry about it, man. That happens to everybody. That is a quirk of Zencaster. And yet I've still managed to put out 300 views episodes. I can see both sound. I can see both waveforms.
Okay.
That's fine.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, like, so what prompted you to want to tell this story, though? Why would you want to go out and try to make a documentary of this?
Well, I've always wanted to be a filmmaker. And I lived in LA for a long time, and I was producing scripted features, and, we had a family tragedy that, we just felt like we needed to leave and come back to Nashville, where I'm from, my wife and I. And, I really had to think about the kinds of stories I wanted to tell and the kinds of projects I wanted to do to fit the lifestyle I wanted to have. And, when I first got back, I was like, I can keep producing from here. And I remember I got a movie financed, and everyone's like, okay, like, we need you back in LA. Let's go. And I was like looking at Airbnbs and places to live and like looking for a sublease. And I was just like, my son was probably 18 months old at this time.
Oh God.
And the idea that I would leave him for 4 months, I'm like, he's going to be a totally different kid when I come back, and it just filled me with such dread. And it turned out the movie did not work out, and the financiers ran away because one of the elements they thought was going to be in the movie backed out. And that was like it for them. And I was like relieved, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I don't have to go back to LA right now. And I was like, maybe continuing to do movies where I'm going to have to leave for, 4, 6, 8 months at a time is not how I want to spend the rest of my career. And that set off this long kind of period where I was trying to figure out, I was like, I want to keep telling visual stories. I also was in the process of distributing my third movie, and we sold it to a company. We signed with a company to distribute. They don't actually give you money up front anymore. And they had like the best reputation. It was called The Orchard. And, instead of, their competitors would release like 140 movies a year, and they release like 12, a month. And they would work really hard at finessing the marketing and finding the right audience. And they'd only work with movies they thought were good and believed in them. And then 2 weeks after we signed with them, a bigger company bought them. And they were like, no, we're going to do everything the same exact way. We promise. And 2 weeks before the movie was supposed to be distributed, they fired everyone we were working with, the entire marketing team, and basically just stole the movie. Like they've not paid us a dime, and they're like, no one's watching it. I'm like, but there were like 400,000 people that looked it up on IMDb this month. Like, you really don't, like, none of those people watched it? Like, that seems like a stretch. And, I was looking around and I was like, well, how do I continue to make a living, making the kind of projects I want? And, can I find a partner that's not just going to steal my work and sell it and not give me the money? So I was looking at crowdfunding and Kickstarter, and I had seen some documentaries that were doing really well. And the ones that worked were things that were like documentaries about stuff in pop culture that people already know about and are familiar with and have a fan base. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, immediately I was like, magic. I could do one about magic because I love that. And so I started, planning that. And the other big projects that seem to do really well are graphic novels and comic books, which I knew nothing about. But
board games too.
Every time, yeah, that's true. But yes. I know even less about that.
Thump less, please.
What?
You were thumping on the table. Try not to do that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was playing with the thing. And so, but I had these like scripts that, I would pitch them to people and they're like, that is a big movie, dude. If you were Steven Spielberg coming in here with that, we'd think about it. But like maybe write a comic book or something with this idea and get an audience and then come back to us, and I always thought that was just like this really dismissive thing that people said. But then over COVID, like I'm talking to my friends in LA and they're just totally lost hope. They were saying like, oh my God, like even when we get on set, it's just miserable doing it this way. And I don't think independent film is going to survive. And I just kind of, I had two little kids at the time. My kids were 2 and 4, I think, at the time. And so they would nap in the afternoons. And when they would go down to nap, I just started writing. And I ended up, I didn't really think anybody would read anything that I was writing. But I adapted one of these screenplays into a graphic novel. And then I just kept going with it. As soon as I finished that one, I started writing another one. Then I wrote another one. And then I wrote another one. And I'm writing 8 of them in a year.
Oh, geez.
Which are about the same amount of writing as writing a feature screenplay. And like up to that point, I don't think I'd ever written more than 2 screenplays in a year. And all of a sudden I had all this material and I'd taken like a regular job. I was working for a real estate company. And I hated it. Like, it's like, I really just want to make stuff. I don't like, having to like talk to people on the phone all day and like, manage these projects to lease up apartment buildings. And, when I left that job at the end of the year, I just started kind of like networking on LinkedIn, and I found this guy who, by the name of Lee Nordling, who, was an editor for DC Comics for 20 years. And he started giving me advice on sort of how to get started and, how to even like write in a proper format. I was kind of just writing screenplays, but,
Yeah, you can't write. I mean, a screenplay is close to writing a graphic novel or comic book, but there's still, you have to be able to give direction to the artist and give like stage direction. And also your writing has to be a little pithier because it's a shorter medium. It's
Yeah.
it's tricky.
And I like his first thing was like, he's like, I wrote this book. I want you to read the book and I want you to do all the exercises and stuff. And then I want to take your book and I want you to do all these things in that I'm telling you to do to your book and then send it to me. I'll give you some feedback. And then I want you to rewrite the book with that feedback. And then I'll tell you if I want to work with you or not. And I was like, okay. There's like a lot of stuff to do. And it took me a couple of months to get back to him. And I did all the stuff to my screen, to my script, and sent it to him. And it was, he sent it back a couple months later. It was just like all red. There was like, notes everywhere. Like everything was wrong. And then I rewrote it and I read it, the night before I was going to send it back to him. And I was like, I hate this now. Like everything. It was about dragon hunters and everything, all the cool scenes that I'd imagined for the movie just did not work at all in a comic book.
Nope.
And, he kept being like, you're not using, you're not using the right tools. You're not using, captions right. You're not doing all this. And then I started looking back at some of the other stuff I had written that year. And one of them, I was like, oh, I'm actually in this one, I'm really using all these tools he's talking about, like in a positive way. And I was sort of like, hey, I know this isn't the deal, but could I send you this other one? And he's like, are you sending me another first draft? It better be good. And I sent it to him, and I took a couple of days and like got the format right and tried to catch some typos, which, I later found out there were many I missed. I didn't hear from him for like 4 months, and I was like, oh, well, I guess my comics career never happened. And then one day I got a text message from him where it just said, what are you thinking about art for this? I was like, oh, I guess he's reading it. Oh. And I was like, oh, well, I literally have not thought about it at all. I just wrote this thing and put it on the shelf and wrote another one. And he came back to me saying, that is a beautiful place to start a collaboration. And I was like, oh, maybe he likes this one. And then I didn't hear from him for a couple of weeks. And he sent me his feedback. And it had like 4 pages. Like the first one had like 15 pages of all the things I was doing wrong. And the like first page just said, David, you have leveled up and leveled up again and leveled up again since that first thing you sent me. He called it a thing. I was like, okay. And he's like, I hope you understand, like, I've never seen anyone like kind of progress like that this quickly. I think this story is really cool. I would love to work with you on it. And then like the rest of the notes were like, this is a really good, like a well-written comics page. I was like, oh, wow. Like that's a totally different experience this time. And then from there on, we started working on Imperia, and it was called United States of Mythica back then, which he told me was way too long of a title. Yes. And then we looked it up, and Mythica was already like a B movie franchise, like a fantasy franchise.
I mean, with a name like that, I would hope so.
Yeah, it was. I watched some of it, and I was like, yeah, we don't want to be mistaken for that. And so, and that comes out in like 3 weeks, 2 weeks.
You should probably give a date, because I don't know when this show is going to be.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So June 3rd is what I'm hearing will be the release date.
Yeah, that sounds sick. I got to read the first one, and it's a very interesting world idea. I have thoughts, but like I'll save that for telling you later. But also going back to your movie, though, like you also talked to one of my dear friends, Bobby Christine, who is just an absolute like sunshine of joy and a true like budding leader in the community. And she came and really grew up and started building this whole new like home for her. And like in her, you can tell the story of just how much post-pandemic Magic became such a home for trans people and for like, the gay community, and just like Magic has become so very heavily oriented around as being a safe space for marginalized communities, especially after lockdown. And it feels like this just, so like getting Bobby as like one of your leads is real. That's a really good call because she's a great story. And,
I didn't know anything about her.
Did somebody tell you like you should talk to this person?
We met at the SLC Magic Summit, which I think was fall of 2022.
Oh yeah, that was like the first one they did.
And
Anderson's con.
I didn't know a lot of the content creators at that time. I didn't know. I knew who like the big people were, but I didn't know a lot of the like smaller ones. And I was just like, I'll interview anybody that's here. And she came with like a bunch of ladies and sat down, and we started talking. And I was like so overwhelmed with her story, telling me about trying to transition and having, her group of guy friends. She had like a group of girlfriends and a group of guy friends. And it was actually the girls that rejected her. But the guys were all like, yeah, whatever, let's play some Magic, and like nothing changed. And that was this thing that like had bonded them. And it was strong enough that it could survive that big change in her life.
Yeah.
And just seeing how positive she was.
Yes.
And just, she like glows.
She's so cool. I mean, we've been friends for a long time, and I've had her on the show, and she is an absolute like pillar of the community, and also just a beacon of light, right? Like it's like one of those type of people that people want to come around and also want to hang out and be happy with. Like that's one of the things about Magic is like you'll see content creators, some of them gather an audience of people who are just there to be shared angry at something, or like, oh, the ban list, or oh, Wizards of the Coast is doing something, or oh, the Universe Beyond, whatever. And then there's folks who are like, we're here to celebrate togetherness and happiness and the fact that we love doing this. And Bobby Christine is definitely one of those people, and I love her. And I was like, when I saw your launch thing, I was like, oh, what a good call, because she's such a good story.
Yeah. And then, so I actually went down and went visit her in Texas afterwards, once I'd kind of been like, okay, I think these are kind of the people I want to follow. And, we did another round of interviews with her and kind of hung out with her at her house and went to one of her favorite LGSs and shot some stuff. And like, I thought that was it. And I was like cutting this story. And then I was on vacation with my family. I think it was like 2 summers ago. And I saw this post where she was like in the hospital and she lost all of her hair. And I was like, oh my God, she has cancer. What happened? And she moved to Portland and like kind of the whole time I've been making this film, Seattle kind of felt like the end boss. It was like, okay, we're building up to go to Seattle because that's where Magic is from. And I was also really holding out that hope that that Wizards would come around to it and want to talk to me, but I could never get them on board. But yeah,
I know that feeling well.
Eventually I was like, okay, it's been like so many emails. I've been emailing back and forth with them for like 3 years now. I'm not making any progress. I'm just going to go up there and shoot what I need to shoot to finish the film. And I was like, well, okay, we got to go down to Portland and visit Bobby again. And, her story about that, and, she was taken in by 2 of her friends that she was in a guild with from City of Heroes, back when they were like tweens. And one of them lived in her neighborhood and she didn't even know about that for like 3 years or something. And then the other two ended up getting married and starting a family. And so when they heard that she was ill and couldn't get medical help, they just were like, then move in with us. We will take care of you. We will get you healthcare. Like, we will make this, we will help you because you're part of our family. And, that to me was like another one of those things where it was just like, here is like the thesis of this film, like proving itself in real life, in real time. Like, here is this family that is, of gamers, people who played video games and played Magic with each other as kids, now they're literally saving each other's lives.
It's like, it drives home when I sit there and I think about the fact that like me and a couple of my forum buddies and my college buddies from like 20, 30 years ago, our kids are getting together to play D&D now. Like, our kids are old enough that, first off, that we have kids, and then that they want to sit down and hang out and play games together the way we did when we were kids. And I'm like, damn, this is what it must have felt like for like old people. And I'm like, oh, now I'm the old person. That's wild. It's really, it's like, especially with Magic, we see a lot of generational growth and a lot of like multi-generation things of people who are like, oh yeah, I played and now my kids play and now, their partners play and now so on and so forth. And I'm like, this is so cool. This is like, a company dreams about having fans like that, but a community thrives by having people like that, right? Like because we can continue to grow and continue to expand and bring in more people. And then it's just like, it's better for everybody. And
my favorite events now are doing, my LGS on Sundays will do, on the Sunday of a pre-release weekend, we'll do Two-Headed Giant. And my son and I go and we play together. It's awesome. Like, yeah,
my son wants me to build him a Dragon Hydra deck. And I'm like, well, working on it. That's, that is hard, but we're here. Turns out a lot. He's like, I want a blinged out deck like you have, Papa. And I'm like, dragons are very expensive. But also, and I guess the fourth person we should talk about, since you got 4 leads in this show, is Talia Vess, who's just phenomenal.
Yes.
She's an absolute hustler and real personable and kind, and just always been incredibly friendly to everybody I've ever seen her interact with. And a great person to have as your, I guess, main focus here. Like, how did you get her involved?
I met her, like, I think she also came with Bobby to that group of interviews. I think it was like all the girls who were kind of in the Birds of Paradise all came up together.
Yes.
Totally reasonable precaution. I think they were sort of like, we don't know who this guy is. He's inviting us up to a hotel room.
No, I mean, that is reasonable and fair, man. Like,
I was like, yep, it's good. We have a girl that's shooting the movie. Like, no weird stuff's going to happen, but you know
what? Better safe than sorry.
So I think I met Talia and Bobby like within minutes of each other. And, she told me this great story. I mean, it's kind of a sad story about how, to become a streamer, she had to break away from this toxic relationship that she was in. And she was in this like abusive relationship. Also just, you can see from the first second how charismatic she is,
yeah, 100%.
How much she loves the game. She was telling us the story about how she'd finished a campaign of Dungeons and Dragons that they've been working on for like a year. And as a celebration, somebody brought over a fat pack and they started drafting. And, you could just see in her eyes, like, this love of the game. And, then also told a story about how, she didn't feel safe going to LGSs. And, shortly after she became a streamer, she got invited to this LGS called Coral Sword in Houston, which we ended up visiting and is super awesome. It's like a coffee shop and a LGS kind of rolled into one. And she met the owner and they just hit it off, David, and he's super cool guy. And, it's just like this really happy story of somebody who, overcame this really toxic, abusive relationship and then found the love of her life through magic.
That's awesome. I love that. Okay, so I'm going to be egotistical. Why did you ask me to do this? I came down during that Vegas and we had like a really great, lengthy conversation because you let me just talk.
Yeah.
Kept going.
Well, I mean, this documentary is not about competitive high level play. If you look at it, the people who make the cuts for the RCs and the Pro Tour, that's a very, very, very tiny part of the fan base of Magic. It's the kitchen table players and the people who go to, a pre-release, once a year or something, they're, I think, in a lot of ways, like a bigger part. There's certainly more of those type of players. And casual Magic is all about that, and I wanted to get your perspective and, and also, it turned out there is a big section that you're kind of driving the conversation up.
It turned out a lot of people play Commander, right? But I'm very excited to see what your final cut ends up looking like, because there have been other documentaries that have been done that have been more about the history of Magic or about the game itself or about the early people. But I think there's a story to be told about who we are now in this modern era of post-pandemic Magic, where it's the biggest it's ever been, the most diverse it's ever been. And I'm excited to see where you go with that. And
I think what happened over COVID, where, the internet, people on the internet were able to kind of find these pockets of safe spaces, through things like Spell Table, I think to a lesser extent through Arena, because there's not really a social aspect of Arena. But I think a lot of people kind of was like, oh yeah, Magic. I remember that.
Arena not having a social aspect is probably for the best, because then you just got salty people who are going to be like, well, you totally just cheated. It's like, shut up.
Yeah. Man. Just nobody wants that.
No.
But I think this transformation that's happened, and I think it's really been over like a decade or so, of the fan base, where it went, where when I first started, diversity in the Magic community, where there were skinny nerdy dudes and there were big fat nerdy dudes. And
when I went to my first Gen Con in 2000, and a friend of mine asked me what it was like, and I said, there are two people here. One person who takes a belt and wraps it around them 4 times, and one person who has 4 belts to wrap around them once. And then me, the one brown guy in the entire state of Wisconsin. And it was wild. But yes, please continue.
Yeah. And I remember, when I was living in LA, I lived 4 blocks away from Next Gen Games, which was a really cool LGS. But I always saw it. I was like, oh, look, they have Magic stuff in the window, but I never stopped to play. And one day I was walking, there was a Subway in the same shopping center. And I was walking over there to get a sandwich, and people were waiting in line to get in there. And I was like, what's going on over here? And they're like, it's a pre-release. And I was like, what? It's been a while. What is a pre-release? And they're like, well, the cards that go on, the new set that goes on sale in 2 weeks or a week, we can play with the cards today. And we'll do a sealed deck. I was like, oh yeah, the last thing I did was Mirage like that, you know.
Your timeline follows mine exactly. Do you remember what set that was that you came back with?
It was Gate Crash. And I remember I ended up not getting the sandwich. I waited in line and I was like the last guy. And it was, it was Ravnica. And so, they had the guilds. Like your pack came with the guild, and they had like one Orzhov box left, and like one Simic box, and then like 100 Gruul boxes. And I was like, I will take Gruul, dude. I love red green. And like I opened it, and the mechanic was perfect. It was like super aggro, but the mechanic I forget what it was called, but it was basically like you could turn. Blood rush. You can turn your creature into an instant, like a combat trick. And I got some pretty good cards, but I was like, this mechanic works perfectly for my play style. I'm all about aggro. And I beat the crap out of all those kids. But I also remembered looking around, I was like, there are girls here. And they're playing Magic. They're not just like watching their boyfriends. They're kicking their boyfriend's ass.
Yes.
And there are, people of color. And like, what happened? Like something has changed.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I just remember when I started playing in the ancient days, and here in California, it's a little different. We've got by nature, the people here are diverse, so the people playing are going to be diverse. But when I would go to tournaments or cons or whatever, and it would just be a sea of the same looking type of, Caucasians or whatever. And over time, you could see that start to drift and start to change. More people would come in. And now, like, I remember going to a GP in 2015, and it's like all dudes all the way. And now you go to a MagicCon, there's families pushing little carriages with babies. There's people of all gender diversity and all like racial diversity up and down. I remember I sat down in MagicCon Philly, and I was at a table, and it was like me and two black people and then a Hispanic person. And I said, I'm like, this is the brownest table of Magic I've ever played in my life. And I didn't even imagine that this was a thing possible, and it was sick. It was so cool. And it's like, I'm not trying to say it's all about race or whatever, but it's just like, it's an experience I've never had. And I'm so used to being an outsider and like feeling like by myself within the community. It's wild to be like, oh wow, there's more of us, and there's a lot of us, and it's cool. And it doesn't feel like forced. It's just like, we all just love Magic. So we're here to jam games. And it just, now we feel comfortable enough to be able to come. And I think that's amazing. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, and I see that even here in Tennessee. I mean, I don't think Nashville is a particularly diverse city, but I go to my LGS and I'm like, there's like an adequate like representation of pretty much everyone. Maybe even like, some minorities are like overrepresented in comparison to like the US population, certainly to the Nashville population. And, the name of the game is Magic the Gathering.
Yes.
And I think if everyone feels welcome to join the gathering, that just makes it all the more richer.
Exactly. 100%. Oh, man, I am excited. Do you know when this is going to come out?
So, I have completed principal photography. I have a cut of the movie that is like a movie. But there's a lot of processes we still have to go. Like I still want to cut about, 15 to 30 minutes out of the cut I've got. It's a little under 2 hours right now. I think I need to get it down to 90. So I'll just cut all your parts out and we'll be good.
That's funny. I talk a lot.
And then there's also I have some opportunities where I'll be in places over the summer where I think I can get some more B-roll that I desperately need. yeah, if you're around the week before Comic-Con, I'll be rolling down the West Coast. Maybe I need some more B-roll of you, because all we got was just, they wouldn't let me shoot in the convention that year.
Lame.
So all I got was, your interview.
I think that they would probably be more permissive now, given that there's 25,000 people at these cons and they can't stop you anyways. So,
I mean, I've always tread softly with WotC. I don't want to get on their bad side, but
that is also.
I don't know if I can get on their good side.
Yeah, don't listen to me about that. do it the right way.
But yeah, I'll bring a camera, and I'm gonna when I'm doing press for the comic, I'll be hopefully starting in Seattle and then just like going all the way down the West Coast, stopping wherever they'll let me, doing signings and stuff until I get to San Diego.
Awesome.
And then, I'm sort of like looking to get any other additional B-roll footage I can. I hope to have like the final picture lock cut by, mid to late August. And then, I've got to turn it over to the sound designer. Sound has been my Achilles heel. If anyone watches my YouTube channel, I'm sorry. The sound is good. It's in there. I just I
can only feel that I'm going to have a lot of fun with your sound in editing for this. We ran all the sound into the camera when we were recording the doc. So there's a lot of multi sound. There's like multiple soundtracks, and some of the things I could split them, and some of them they all came in and into the Premiere as one track. And I'm like, I've been struggling with that. I talked to my sound designer, Marcello Dubaz, and he was like, dude, this is it's like 10 minutes in Pro Tools and I can fix this. I'm like, okay, good. Like, I don't know that I can fix it for YouTube. I can't afford you to work on my YouTube videos, but for the final film, we got enough, we raised enough money through the Kickstarter to do all that stuff. Fantastic.
We got to do sound design. We got to do music. We got to do color correction, yes. And then do the final output. All those things, take time. They take money. They take expertise that I don't have. So I need to hire people to do that. And they have, there's that old saying, you can do things good, fast, and cheap, but you can only pick two.
Yep.
Well, I want to do it good, and we're stuck with cheap. So it might take a little longer than we hope. But my genuine hope is that we will be done with the movie by the end of the year.
Fantastic.
Like have a final output by the end of the year. And, unfortunately, the way the fulfilling the Kickstarter rewards will work, I won't be able to release the DVDs, and I won't even be able have the capability to release the digital downloads until we get to distribution. So I want to do some film festivals. I want to hit places like, I know Gen Con has a film festival, and Dragon Con and Comic Con. So I want to participate in those and do that. So it probably won't be until like October of 2027 when we get everybody their DVDs and stuff, and the playmats.
The playmats look sick.
Thanks. Yeah, I think we got some really good ones. Cool. So if you like them, they're still for sale. You can still get them. Go to Kickstarter.
I mean, I was in the I was in the movie industry for a long time, and I also used to cut trailers for Sony, so I know exactly for Sony PlayStation. So I know exactly what you're talking about in terms of the pain that this is. And so I wish you the best of luck. And if folks wanted to find out more about this film or about you or anything like that, where can they go?
So I have a really clunky website for thegatheringisthemagic.com. You can also look, I have a cool website for my comic, Imperia Comic, mtgcommander.com. It looks, here's the first issue. I guess most people are listening to this. Imperia is spelled Empiria. And there's contact on both of those things. You can reach out if you want to look on Kickstarter. The Gathering is the Magic page is still up on that. There's tons of information. You can message me through that. And I'll, if you've already pledged, I will continue to do updates about our progress and stuff through there. Or you could look me up on YouTube as well. It's The Gathering is the Magic as well there. I will continue to release, little anecdotes about how different cards were made, stories from the artists, every week, every Friday.
Awesome. And as always, my friends, you can find me on Blue Sky at Shivam Bhatt. You can find this podcast where podcasts are sold, or at YouTube every Tuesday. Thanks to my editor, Dan. You can also hear me on Shivam Wheel of Love Magic or the Chronicles of Dragonlance. And remember, my friends, it's not magic without the gathering, and we'll see you next time.